this time for week 2 NFL reactions. I hope you guys enjoy my week 2 predictions. Um, let's get it right into it. Okay, first things first. We have the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Minnesota Vikings. This game was weird. It had a weird start, to say the least. Both teams, they were just turning the ball over left and right for some reason. I don't know. They forgot how to play football in the first quarter, but the Eagles were able to get 3 points out of that. Speaking of forgetting, for not like winning the ball or whatnot, the Minnesota Vikings, this game cost them because they kept turning the ball over. Every time they had a big play, they turned the ball over. You get deep into Philly's territory on a good punt return, you turn the ball over. Justin Jefferson, you think he's about to get the touchdown. Nope, he fumbles the ball over the pylon. He turned the ball over. They shot themselves in the foot. They have nobody to blame but themselves for being 0-2. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles, they didn't even really play that good. I mean, you had Devonta Smith having 175 yards, but that was Jalen Hurts' main target because Jalen Hurts only had 193 passing yards. Um, Devonta Smith had like obviously his own Jalen Hurts' only touchdown pass, and for some reason on the sideline, even though they were winning, Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown were getting into it because he barely had the ball. But the Minnesota Vikings, they shot themselves in the foot. Then they had to play catch up. The Philadelphia Eagles, on the other hand, they do look like frauds to me. I don't trust them. They have not played like they haven't played like themselves from last year. Because if this was the Eagles from last year, they pretty much would have did what they did last year to the Minnesota Vikings when they played on Monday Night Football. But this game right here, it was an odd game, but the Vikings ultimately shot themselves in the foot, and they have nobody to blame but themselves. Next up, you got the Chicago Bears taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bears fans, I hope y'all are happy with the quarterback that y'all got. Y'all was hyping up a whole lot before the season even started. Um, he's not that guy. I mean, his stats just speaks for himself. Um, he had 211 passing yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions, and those 2 interceptions were deep in his own territory. I'll get back to that in a little bit, but as far as I'm concerned, he is not that guy. Meanwhile, you have Baker Mayfield. He looked like he's found a permanent home in Tampa Bay after pretty much giving his all in Cleveland just to get dumped. Even though he played through an injury and still got dumped, got traded to Carolina. He played bad, but wasn't a good fit for him. Got dumped. He played for the Rams, became a free agent, and now he's landed in a perfect spot for him. Him and Mike Evans, they have been balling out for the past 2 weeks. Hopefully they can continue this, especially since they have to play the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football. And back to Justin Fields. This man, those 2 interceptions, one of the easiest pick sixes you will ever see in your life to Shaq Barrett, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Then that pretty much gave them a 10-point lead. Then you had another interception that pretty much sealed the game for them. So yeah, back to the drawing board, Bears fan. Then you have the Baltimore Ravens, who went into Cincinnati and beat the Bengals. Pretty much in the first half, Joe Burrow he did not look like himself at all. He was missing reads, still looking a little shaken. Then you also had a rare Justin Tucker missed field goal. Lamar Jackson, he pretty much did whatever he wanted this entire game, and he actually has decent wide receivers, which was a key to why he was able to slice and dice the Cincinnati defense. Cincinnati didn't have an offensive touchdown until the second half. The only touchdown for them in the first half was off of a punt return. But Joe Burrow, he finally got things going, but it was pretty much too little too late, and his defense wasn't able to stop the Ravens to give them another chance. But Joe Burrow, he somehow, some way, he got to knock the rust off. They were in this position last season, starting the season 0-2. But I mean, anything's possible. He can pull it off again or go back to being the Bengals of old. But who knows? Then you have the Indianapolis Colts, who went into Houston and beat the Texans 31-20. Anthony Richardson, bro. I mean, you didn't disappoint in the first couple of minutes that you played, but you had them good 2 rushing touchdowns. But yet you weren't able to finish the game due to you getting injured and being on the concussion protocol. But Gardner Minshew pretty much held down the fort, so there's nothing to really be worried about. The Houston Texans offensive line, y'all about to get C.J. Stroud killed, because if y'all want to see him flourish, y'all need to have a good offensive line. Y'all do not have a good offensive line. That unit is terrible. But yeah, that's pretty much it about that game. Anthony Richardson, get better though, because you are a hell of a player. Then you have the best game of the week, in my opinion. The Seahawks taking on the Detroit Lions again in Detroit. Turnovers and trying to go for it on 4th down cost the Lions. They went 1 for 4 or 1 for 3. Yeah, they went 1 for 3 on 4th down and given Geno Smith easy money for the field. So he was able to do what he wanted. He didn't have to go that far. By the time we got into overtime, that Lions defense could not stop a nosebleed. Geno Smith just walked down the field, and they couldn't do nothing about it. Except one thing that I will say on that game-winning drive is that the referees was obviously participating in that Bird Box challenge, that Stevie Wonder challenge, by clearly not seeing Aiden Hutchinson getting held. That man looked like he was about to get baptized, and I guess that's just a Seahawks win. I mean, congratulations, Seahawks. I mean, you barely squeaked by the Detroit Lions. Y'all still not winning the NFC West, and y'all still not gonna do nothing against the 49ers. I can't wait for Thanksgiving, because y'all gonna get smacked back to reality, just like the Rams did to y'all last week. But that's neither here nor there. Then you had, from the best game to the weird game, you had the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville 17-9. The Kansas City Chiefs look off. Their offense looks off. I get people were talking about the wide receivers dropping stuff here and there, but they made it to the NFL, so they have to produce or whatnot. I mean, but they did enough. And the Chiefs' defense did a fantastic job against Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence, that man had so many opportunities in the red zone, and the Chiefs' defense really stepped up. Trevor Lawrence went 0 for 6 in the red zone. Not a touchdown, not a field goal. Chris Jones came back and wreaked havoc. Travis Kelce came back. He had his touchdown. Has a little moment. This game was just so off, because this is not the type of game, when you hear Patrick Mahomes' name, you just see he only scored 17 points in the win. No, you expect big plays. But I guess not having Eric Bieniemy anymore as the offensive play caller might have something to do with it. But we will find out in the near future. Then we have the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Buffalo Bills. The Raiders only had one good drive, and that was their opening drive, where Garoppolo got a touchdown pass to Devontae Adams. But then the Bills, their defense was what sparked this beatdown against the Raiders. Garoppolo had 2 interceptions. Uh, I think Josh Jacobs, he even got mossed on one. And speaking of Josh Jacobs, you are the reigning rushing champion. The reigning rushing champion of the National Football League. And you have -2 yards on the ground? Like, that's crazy. Then, you know, besides that, the Buffalo Bills, this was really a get right game for them after squandering that game against the New York Jets, which they really lost to the Jets without Aaron Rodgers. And the Jets, I mean, not the Jets, the Bills, they should be 2-0 right now. But I mean, they're not. So, I mean, they got their good little bounce back game. So, hopefully, they are not inconsistent and keep this going. And that game right there, I watched that in real time. It was terrible. Then you have the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Green Bay Packers, where the Falcons beat the Packers 25-24. What happened in this game? Desmond Ritter
Oh
is
yeah, the
indeed
apology. I
mobile.
wasn't really familiar with your game, and
He's really out here slinging the rock, doing his thing. Jordan Love, he even had a pretty good game too for the most part. For the first 3 quarters until that fourth, the Packers, they pretty much had control of the majority of that game, but they choked. Um, the Green Bay Packers, they definitely missed Aaron Jones this game. Aaron Jones most likely would have made an impact, but still, there's no telling that they would have won the game still. It's just, y'all had a 12-point lead going into the fourth quarter. It was 24-12. Then Atlanta just went nuclear on you guys. It was a pretty nice game plan by Atlanta to come back. Bijan Robinson, he's definitely going to be a problem. He was putting a couple of boys on skates, taking their ankles. And that's it for that one. But Packers, y'all got to do better because y'all stay letting somebody run for like 100+ yards on y'all defense, but that's neither here nor there. Then you have the LA Chargers taking on the Tennessee Titans. Ryan Tannehill, finally, he did not sell. He pulled a good game out of his back, and he played good. But speaking of good games, obviously, the Chargers would love to check out, which they always do every time Justin Herbert has a good game, because for some reason, that man Herbert cannot get no help, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because for some reason they cannot stop a nosebleed, giving up 36 points to the Dolphins in week 1, giving up 27 points to the Titans in week 2 to Ryan Tannehill of all people. But I mean it is what it is. It ain't my team. Justin Herbert, a cool 305 yards, 2 touchdowns. This man Josh Kelly, bro, should not touch another NFL field ever again in his life. That man really had 13 carries for 39 yards. Keenan Allen, 8 receptions for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. But that defense, the Chargers defense, is really the tail of this game. Ryan Tannehill, 246 yards and a touchdown. Derrick Henry, I feel like he's on that running back decline that people always talk about, because normally he'd probably have like the smallest amount of carries but for a huge chunk of yards. But just this past week, he only had 25 carries for 86 yards. Or no, not 86 yards, 80 yards and 1 touchdown. And yeah, Chargers, bro, y'all got to get y'all defense fixed. Then you have the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Los Angeles Rams. This game, I did not expect the Rams to be competing. I was kind of shocked when, they were driving down the field just having their way. The 49ers, the offense, to an extent, continued to play continues to play good, but Brock Purdy, there was a couple of throws where it should have been easy touchdowns or like easy first downs, and he just like overthrew them, and he did put that on himself and promised to get better. Puka Nakua was the biggest surprise of the game. He broke out. He broke the rookie record for yards and receptions in the first two games as a rookie, with a combined 25 catches for 266 yards. That is very impressive. Nobody saw this coming. I didn't even know who Puka Nakua was until last week when he put up 119 yards on the Seahawks. But for this game, he want to put a 147 yards on my defense. Speaking of the 49ers defense, we looked off. We looked a little sluggish. But, I mean, in the second half, we pretty much got a grip, though. We picked off Matthew Stafford twice. I mean, he only had one touchdown and 2 interceptions. We did okay in the second half. But that first half, Matthew Stafford was pretty much having his way. It was tied at 17 going into halftime, and we only held them to 2 field goals, which came in the fourth quarter. Well, it would have been 1, but the Rams, they wanted to screw bettors over literally in the last 3 seconds. Yeah, so, and you also had Christian McCaffrey still going off, 20 carries for 116 yards, but McCaffrey, he went off in the first half, but he hardly did anything. He barely squeaked 100 yards. So it's not like he was just going off like all game. Like, it was pretty much first half, then he slowed down in the second half. Brandon Ayuk, he had like a shoulder injury. Hopefully he's okay and is able to play on Thursday night against the New York Giants. Fingers crossed for him. Then you had Deebo Samuel, 6 receptions, 63 yards, 5 carries, 38 yards, and had a rushing touchdown. Deebo Samuel, he is that guy, ultimate Ram killer. I just wish every time we killed the Rams in the NFC title game, but that's neither here nor there. And speaking of our Thursday night football opponents, we have the New York Giants. The New York Giants taking on the Arizona Cardinals. The Giants, they beat the Cardinals 31-28, but at one point the Cardinals had a 20-0 lead. Also, which means at one point the Giants, for 6 quarters, were outscored 60-0. The New York Giants, they're not gonna do anything at all this season. I expect them to miss the playoffs. They're not gonna make it. Their team is definitely flawed. All that climbing back stuff done cost them Saquon Barkley, who has a high ankle sprain and is going to be out for this Thursday and about like 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 more weeks after. The Cardinals are in full tanking mode. I'm pretty sure like they didn't care. Well, the front office didn't care, but I'm pretty sure this hurts the players because obviously as a player you always want to win. Yeah, the New York Giants, they pretty much cost themselves. It's like they sold their souls for this game because you won the game, but at what cost? And that cost was Saquon Barkley, and hopefully Saquon Barkley gets better. Then you have the Jets and the Cowboys. The Cowboys defense continues to dominate. I wish the 49ers defense would have did that, but that's neither here nor there. Their defense continues to dominate. Through 2 games, they have only allowed 10 points while scoring 70 against the opposing team. It doesn't matter which team that's against because they are all NFL teams. Everybody did what they did to make it, to the NFL. They are professionals, but that Cowboys defense is legit. Zach Wilson really struggled against the Cowboys defense, throwing 3 interceptions to 1 touchdown. The Jets defense forgot to show up. They could not stop that Cowboys offense. You even had CeeDee Lamb with 11 receptions for 143 yards. That man is nice. Really helping me out on my fantasy team though. But yeah, that Cowboys defense ain't nothing to play with. 30-10 win, keep dominating, and that's just what they gonna do. Speaking of, yeah, the polar opposite of this. I mean, at one point it was 21-3. 21-3 in the first half, and I'm talking about the Denver Broncos who hosted the Washington Commanders. The Commanders, they didn't look good for the first couple of minutes. Meanwhile, the Broncos, they were letting Russ cook, and he wasn't burning up the kitchen. Then he got a little out of hand. I don't even know if a little is even a little ain't even a understatement. Oh, it's not even an understatement. It's an overstatement. One of the two. I'm messing up. But they had Sam Howell looking like Patrick Mahomes out there. Sam Howell had 299 yards passing, and there's also Terry McLaurin with one of the best touchdowns of the week, catching it over two Broncos defenders' heads. The Broncos, though, in the fourth quarter, they nearly came back. A prayer was answered when Russell Wilson threw about like a 50-yard Hail Mary pass, and they couldn't get that 2-point conversion. And just like the Lions game, there was a little controversy. The referees did not throw a flag on a blatant pass interference, which was quite odd when there's literally a ref looking at them. But I mean, one way or another, the Broncos shouldn't have put themselves in that position in the first place, because you had a 21-3 lead at one point, then you lost the game 35-33. But it is what it is. Then you have Sunday Night Football between the Miami Dolphins and the New England Patriots. The Dolphins find different ways to win. Last week, it was through their passing attack, and they just could pretty much do everything. They didn't really rush like that last week, but that passing attack was lethal. But this week, they could hardly do anything for the most part on the pass game, but they let Raheem Mostert cook, and so he did. And he led the team in rushing for 18 carries, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That final touchdown was definitely the backbreaker on the New England Patriots, but they almost converted. The New England Patriots, though, when they were going down the field, they almost converted on the funniest fourth down in NFL history. The Patriots, they look washed. This franchise is washed. They don't look like the juggernaut they were from 2001 to 2018, because even in 2019 they kind of look like frauds, and ultimately went 12-4 to finish off that season. But the Miami Dolphins, they are looking like serious AFC contenders, and I feel like they're going to give everybody in that conference a run for their money. They're looking like the best team in the AFC. But that is to be determined. Then we have the New Orleans Saints taking on the Carolina Panthers. Derek Carr had a mid-game. I mean, as mid as you can get. Bryce Young, he kept missing players when they were open and kind of throwing stupid passes. But I mean, he'll learn eventually. I don't know when, but eventually. Then you have Chris Olave, who had one of the catches of the year, where he had a defender on his back and he pretty much caught it. It looked like he caught it one-handed, but he brought it in with himself. And the Saints, they improved to 2-0 after beating the Carolina Panthers 20-17. And that's that about that game. Wasn't really much to talk about. Then you have the final game, the Browns taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh boy. This was kind of hard to watch. At first, it got off to a weird start. First play of the game, a pick six goes the Steelers' way. They score on the very first play of scrimmage, but Nick Chubb is out for the season after suffering one of the worst knee injuries I've ever seen in my life. Almost worse than the Gordon Hayward injury back in 2017 when the Cavaliers took on the Celtics on opening night. But that has to be one of the worst injuries I've ever seen in my life. Hopefully it's not career threatening and he's able to play the game of football, next season. But first, hopefully he heals all the way and everything goes right in his healing process. But the Steelers, they won this game because of their defense. 2 defensive touchdowns. Like I mentioned earlier, that pick 6 to pretty much set the tone. Then you also had that fumble return, which was the Steelers' only points in the fourth quarter. And that was pretty much enough to put the Browns away. Deshaun Watson, he still looks off. One thing that I do want to see from him still is that 2020 or 2019 season, 2020 season of where he was just balling before he got hit with all these accusations and stuff. Kenny Pickett, he was pretty much average. He went 15 to 30 for 222 yards, but the majority of those 222 yards went to the 71-yard strike to George Pickens, where nobody could tackle him. Speaking of George Pickens, he had 4 receptions for 127 yards and a touchdown. Najee Harris, I ain't gonna lie, he looks garbage, bro. He ain't do nothing last week. He didn't do nothing this week. Only 10 carries for 43 yards. I'm not a big Najee Harris fan, but I mean, it is what it is. So yeah, that was the recap for week 2. Y'all tell me what y'all like about this video. If you like it, give me a thumbs up, share it, subscribe, and I'll see you for week 3 predictions.